Welcome to Mozzy Sales. In this video I'm going to give you three things. First of all, the lowdown on INEOS's newfound speed, especially in the light, where that has come from and where we might have seen it in the past. Second, I'm going to talk a little bit about the French and their position in the competition. Thirdly, I'm going to talk about the curious case of the missing media data. And then finally, as the final topic, I'm going to reveal to you that Emirates Team New Zealand have used their final foil. So they have gone through their complete allocation of foil wings. But let's start with the hot topic of the day, INEOS's newfound light wind speed. So if you've not been paying attention, INEOS have had a steady rise through the round robin from the preliminary regatta. First round of the round robin, they showed glimmers of hope, but the performances were a little bit wavering and it felt like they were digging out results against the grain. In my last video, I pointed out, though, that there was an underlying speed in Britannia, and on the previous day's racing, we saw this in kind of like 14, 15 knots, where they were really showing good VMG comparables against Luna Rossa and Alinghi Red Bull. But where the question still lied was, could they replicate this newfound high mode in the lighter winds? So I'm just going to jump into the data a little bit and show you where this mode has been lurking, and also give you Luna Rossa fans a little bit of a glimmer of hope, because you might be feeling a bit disheartened after going down 2-1 against the Brits. In today's data, you can see that INEOS's race in light winds, they were really had decent VMG, especially downwind. So coming off the line, INEOS carry more speed into the start. They start at the favoured end of the line, so as soon as they go over the line, you can just see that end is favoured to the wind, so they get a half a boat length advantage there. And going a few knots faster, Italy have to bear off slightly to do the build for the tack. They don't want to go too far left on the course because the right's favoured, and that allows them, INEOS, to instantly face them. And that is largely this race over with. I don't think INEOS had a great speed advantage upwind, so if I just go a little bit forward to here, where they're both pretty much on parallel tacks going across the course, you see that Luna Rossa is actually pulling this gap down, especially towards the top of the course, just before this tack. So actually, I think at times Luna Rossa were quicker, but losing the start, starting slower at the least favour end of the line, really allowed INEOS to face them on that first tack. I've said before, slow speed, INEOS really struggle with a high mode. Their general high mode is better now, but I would think if you were the Italians, you want to be starting tight to leeward or on the windward hip of INEOS so that you can climb out and then face them on the tack. On the downwinds, INEOS are quick though. Just look at, so about 200 metres behind, and this just stretches out to over 300 metres. It could be little Gus. I'm just taking this first lap where the boats are more in the same breeze. After that, it kind of separated out, but I don't think Luna Rossa was losing out terribly again upwind when they get on the same tack here going across the course. This gauge is coming down, so it goes from when they after the tack about 320, and then before the tack here, taken 10 metres out of them, but they're not losing a huge amount of distance upwind, Luna Rossa. And we know this course in the southwest conditions is quite biased to the right. A bit lighter here than in the preliminary regatta, where we had very one-sided conditions, but in those, the teams that won the start were always extending, and I think that is basically what we're seeing today. So I wouldn't be taking this as a Britannia supporter as some sort of kind of like amazing victory which defines the AC. they've basically stopped making mistakes, started getting better starts, and are doing an excellent job of controlling the races. Don't take that away from them at all, because they're sailing exceptionally at the back end of this round robin. But it's probably not quite the drastic speed jump that you may be anticipating from the round robins. And you can see upwind VMG's INEOS is pretty close. They're sailing a little bit, actually a little bit of a looser angle. So again, just getting pinned against the boundaries. Downwind, again, speed differences. Here, upwind VMG, downwind VMG, not hugely difference between Italy and green. Yeah, that was the first race, and INEOS, that race did get a bit of a cuffing, but it was mostly just when they dropped off the foils at the bottom end of the course once and then didn't regain. So for INEOS, it's really just cutting out those mistakes, getting a better start, getting the course advantage, and then seeing it through for the win. So if you're a Luna Rossa fan, yeah, it's disappointing to take those 2 losses, but just in the way that I was cautioning people after the prelim that some of the races were kind of making it look overly good for teams and there was hidden speed in the INEOS boat, I will say the reverse now, that speed's still there for INEOS and they're properly demonstrating it now, but there's not been a huge underlying change. It's just the kind of execution in the way the races have played out. But in the previous video, if there is any change they've made, it is they're able to get a better high mode. So I think their VMG mode is still largely the same, but they're getting a better high mode. But they've also not seen that high mode tested quite as much in the second half of the round robin, which I'd look for other teams to test. Mystery of the missing data next. I would love to give you a full breakdown of how INEOS are sailing the boat earlier in the regatta and afterwards. And in the previous America's Cup, I was able to do this by looking at the data, the media data which sat behind the virtual eye that I just played through to you. But all that data is missing this time round. And that is pretty odd because we know it's being collected. Here's the technical regulations. It says what the media system is and all the data that it's collecting and recording, including power data. So that is being collected. We know it because it's in the rules. Why is it not being put up on the media side? Well, a few things. First of all, that no teams can see this data about the other yachts, the performance data about the other yachts, unless it is made public by Ace Media, who don't seem to be making it public, and that is just, I guess, their choice in some ways. But that's obviously disappointing. It'd be disappointing for the teams because they'll be looking to learn from that data about one another, but it's just not available, and I'm surprised the teams aren't shouting about this a bit more. But I think it is pretty strange that the America's Cup media isn't putting it out, because it does say in the protocol also that that the data will be made public, open data, from the date the equipment has been detailed, is operational, through to the last race. AC Media shall make the data that is generated by AC Media's equipment and sensors available to the public. But I'd appreciate it if you in the audience to help me get my hands on this data and tell you the full story of what's going on with these yachts. What you can do to help me is email media@americascup.com and ask them, can you release the public media data to Mozzy? Send those emails in. Every email counts to get them to release that data, because that is what the fans want to see. Okay, moving on. If you're Emirates Team New Zealand, how do you feel about watching this? Well, I think they would have already known Luna Rossa were a strong challenger, and they would have been naturally concerned about a strong challenger. Luna Rossa have taken a race from them, have looked pretty strong in other races and had marginal VMG gains. And now INEOS are emerging as a equally strong challenger to Luna Rossa. So if you're Team New Zealand, that's a double threat you now have. And because INEOS is a kind of at a different end of the design space as Emirates Team New Zealand or Luna Rossa, I think that adds extra weight to the threat that they're doing something different. So our Team New Zealand running scared about this? Well, they have been switching foils on their boat. Now, strictly speaking, they are not allowed to switch any components on the boat. So you have to declare 120 hours before a stage of the event starts. So that is 120 hours before the round robin started, your yacht configuration. And you have to name all the components you will race with, and then the components you have as spare, and the substitution order you will put those components on if your initial configuration gets damaged. So the only legal way that Team New Zealand can put a new foil on is if one's been damaged. And I think these images from the end of August and then going even 1st of September, still racing with the smaller starboard foil that they used to have. And you can see that foil is changed by the top of the boot on the foil. So there's definitely a new wing on there, and it looks to have quite different wingtips a lot closer to INEOS's. So obviously at some point, unless Team New Zealand are outright cheating, then they must have damaged a foil. Now there was the crane drop, where they dropped the boat and the foils hit down, but we were told by Grant Dalton that those forces didn't exceed a normal day sailing, and they did continue to sail with the older foil wing for several days after that. So it's much later on in the competition that they've changed this foil wing. So it is all a bit odd. So I'd like to know exactly what damage they've sustained to that foil wing which led them to change it. Yeah, but valuable data for them, obviously testing all three of their wings against the competition. Obviously it was probably a damage that got it on board, but necessarily an upside to that damage would be that they can test an extra foil. Finally, the final thing, today we saw the French go home, and I think this was a great pity. I would have loved to see a race off between the two bottom teams. As a impartial third party, probably would have been more exciting than a race off for the win, which is just for a choice of who you would race against in the semis. It wasn't to be. I generally think that the French have got a great thing going with their America's Cup challenge. First of all, they've bought a design package from Team New Zealand, which is clearly very competitive. Most of their issues have been about reliability and just getting time on the water with those sailors. But I think they've got a talented bunch of people. And the thing I like most about the French challenge is it's based in a genuine maritime technology culture, and for me that's what the America's Cup is all about. It's about industrial kind of like complexes and hubs going toe to toe in a design race, and the French in Lorient certainly have that. So it's just exciting to have them in full force in the competition, and that with the leg start they've been given by buying this design package, I think makes them super attractive for sponsors coming in. So I really hope they get the backing they deserve. And they've been a welcome addition to the competition. They've really added intrigue to this round robin. They've been absolutely no walkovers at all. So yeah, gave the Swiss a real run for their money. That's for sure. I guess final point, a little cheeky question. You're INEOS, who do you choose as your opponent in the semi-finals? We will find out on Friday their choice. A little friend of mine said when he was speaking to Ian Williams in a completely unrelated event, but Ian Williams is adamant that if you get the choice of your opponent, you always select the second place from the round robins. Ian Williams is, of course, the INEOS match race coach, whether he'll influence it, and they'll face off against Luna Rossa. Based on the speed data, I still think that's a bit risky, and I would probably choose a Lingy as the lowest ranked team. Yeah, intriguing choice coming up for INEOS. Let me know who you would choose. But I will be back at you with lots more analysis and review as the competition progresses, and hopefully if you all get emailing media@americascup.com, we'll get to see the data which we know they're collecting and give you a full in-depth analysis to give you the real stories of how these boats are being sailed. Thanks very much. See you around.